The United States Navy's role in the Vietnam War is largely forgotten. This is surprising given that the Navy was involved in the war's prosecution in almost every conceivable way. This video introduces viewers to the Navy's wartime contributions, including intelligence and special operations, surface warfare, air power, riverine combat, and logistics. Along the way, you will hear the experiences of Navy veterans who describe their war in Vietnam. Some might argue that it was naval action that led to direct U.S. involvement in the war. On August 2, 1964, North Vietnamese patrol boats attacked USS Maddox in the Gulf of Tonkin. This incident, along with the belief that a second attack took place, induced Congress to pass the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution, which gave President Lyndon Johnson almost limitless authority to use America's armed forces to defend non-communist nations in Southeast Asia without a formal declaration of war. Once the United States escalated involvement in the war, the U.S. Navy demonstrated its dynamic and diverse capabilities in earnest. Virtually all military actions in Vietnam depended on accurate and timely intelligence. During the war, naval intelligence personnel provided information that enabled successful operations, influenced tactical victories, and saved the lives of Americans and their allies. From the air, from the sea, and from the land, sailors collected information about the North Vietnamese and the Viet Cong rebels who supported them. Naval intelligence missions were dangerous and deadly, though not without failures. Overall, naval intelligence critically aided the war effort, hindering North Vietnam's effort to resupply South Vietnam by sea. Further, naval intelligence missions identified targets for attack aircraft, and they helped riverine forces keep control of the vital Mekong Delta. Additionally, in 1962, the Navy established 2 counterinsurgency SEAL teams. Often operating in small 6-man squads, SEALs carried out ambushes, reconnaissance patrols, and special intelligence operations. 48 SEALs lost their lives in Vietnam, and 3 others received the Medal of Honor. Navy SEAL Rick Woolard recounted a typical patrol in the jungles of Vietnam.
And we just moved carefully along using hand and arm signals. I would direct the point man sometimes by speaking to him. So we'd move up to an ambush position, settle in. These are all things that we'd rehearsed before. There didn't have to be much communication. You would know where everybody was. I mean, you could tell by a man's silhouette at night exactly who it was. You knew what the guy smelled like in the dark. So you get your objective area, and it didn't take a lot of direction to get guys to set up where they wanted, whether it was on a hooch or on a canal bank or any place else. You just knew what to do.
At sea, ocean-going warships monitored coastal fortifications and enemy communications. Cruisers and destroyers bombarded Vietnamese coastal and inland targets, often saving Allied troops in imminent danger. Along with Coast Guard vessels and South Vietnamese coastal craft, U.S. Navy surface ships successfully blockaded a 1,200-mile coastline from the 17th parallel to the Cambodian border. Other daily surface missions included search and rescue, tracking enemy aircraft, and landing U.S. Marines for amphibious operations. But the Navy's 8-inch and 5-inch guns were in constant demand. Charlie Pfeiffer, an officer aboard the destroyer USS Richard Edwards, remembered how often his ship received calls for fire support.
Things that, because of the war, that you would never even think of doing. It wasn't unusual at all for us to rearm. We fired so much that we rearmed probably 2 days out of 3. And so it wasn't unusual at all for us to get back on the gun line and start getting requests for fire with pallets of ammunition still sitting on the mess decks to be struck down into the magazine. So, you do what you have to do.
Air power was a crucial element of American strategy during the Vietnam War. U.S. pilots provided fire support for friendly troops, attacked key supply routes along the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and bombed North Vietnam's infrastructure to weaken the enemy's campaign against South Vietnam. During the course of the war, American planes dropped more than twice as many bombs in Southeast Asia as they used in all of World War II. The Navy delivered 25% of that ordnance. Task Force 77, the aircraft carrier group assigned to 7th Fleet, generally operated from an area off North Vietnam called Yankee Station. These aircraft carriers provided the American war effort with one of its most important capabilities, the projection of power from offshore. In this clip, Bob Ponton, an A-6 Intruder Bombardier Navigator, remembers the type of missions that he and his pilot experienced when they flew off the USS Midway.
Second deployment, we left early, we came back late. I was told it was the longest deployment of the Vietnam War, I was told. Everything was downtown. Everything was downtown. North, south, you name it, we went there. This time, during the day, typically we were maybe a flight of 2, doing recce, just go out and take a look. Alpha strikes were big. So if we're doing alpha strikes, the whole air wing would be involved. An alpha strike was, here's this target, this airfield. We'll have 4 A6s, we'll have 8 A7s carrying bombs. We'll have 8 Phantoms, both bombing and protecting the fleet, protecting us from MiGs. We'd have jammers. The EKA-3s would jam for us. We'd have a photo recce. So all of us, all these airplanes, you go in as a bunch. And it was a serial roll-in. You'd all roll in, and once you pointed the nose, that's all. That's all you saw was visual delivery on the target.
Aircraft carriers were the scenes of the costliest naval disasters of the Vietnam War. The Navy suffered 3 deadly fires aboard the USS Oriskany, Forrestal, and Enterprise that accounted for the deaths of 206 men. USS Forrestal's fire occurred on July 29, 1967, when a Zuni rocket misfired and hit the fuel tank of a plane parked on the flight deck. Marine Johnny Allen, stationed aboard Forrestal, remembered the devastation wrought by the unforgiving flames.
It was like carnage. I'm amazed. The deck itself, as thick as that steel is, I don't remember how thick the steel was, but to witness that, how that thing folded in, folded down when that bomb went off, that was a heck of a power.
Perhaps most famously, the Navy clashed with Viet Cong guerrillas in the shallows of Vietnam, with the creation of the first brown water navy since the American Civil War. Control of the rivers was vital to the war effort. In Operation Game Warden, swift boats, river patrol boats or PBRs, and other vessels of the River Patrol Force fought to deny the enemy's use of South Vietnam's inland waterways. The Navy supplied special vessels for the Mobile Riverine Force to carry troops and support Army operations. Later in the war, Operation Sea Lords increased security in the Mekong Delta until American forces finally withdrew. During the war, the Brownwater Navy patrolled 3,000 nautical miles of inland waters. Many of these patrols ended with wounds both physical and emotional, as recounted by swiftboat sailor Charlie Hunt.
His mission this one day was to go try to find a prisoner of war camp. Now, a prisoner of war camp in Vietnam and the Delta was different than what you see on TV for World War II or whatever, or even for what you saw in Hanoi, let's say. It could be 3 prisoners and a half a dozen Viet Cong holding them in a couple of huts. But anyhow, they're looking for this POW camp. So we take them down the river and up this little canal, and we drop them all off, and we pull back out in the river and wait. And all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose. You hear rockets and guns and machine gun fire and everything, and radio call to go get them. Turns out they had walked into a minefield and come under heavy enemy fire in the minefield. So we loaded all these people back, and we had all the wounded because our gunner's mate had mistakenly been sent to corpsman school for many, many weeks before he could get his orders straight. So he had corpsman training, so they put all the dead and wounded on our boat. And there was so much blood, it was actually running down the decks of the boat. And he sat on the bow with his fingers holding the femur artery of this guy that had no leg to keep him alive. And then, you know, we pulled out, found a safe landing zone for the helicopters, you know, put down smoke. They come in and pick up the wounded and take them away. The guy bled to death in a helicopter.
The U.S. Navy was also the backbone of the American logistics effort in Vietnam. The United States transported 99% of ammunition and 95% of supplies, including vehicles, by sea. By mid-1967, the Military Sea Transport Service, or MSTS, ran a fleet of 527 ships to keep the ammunition and equipment moving. The MSTS also transported tens of thousands of U.S. and Allied troops to South Vietnam. The Seabees, or Navy Construction Battalions, built, repaired, and maintained bases and port facilities, hangars, helicopter pads, runways, piers, and offshore fuel lines. Naval personnel also provided spiritual and physical support. Navy doctors and nurses treated the wounded on hospital ships, and chaplains and corpsmen served with Marines fighting on the front lines. Navy chaplain Gordon Paulson remembered the gut-wrenching duty performed by one doctor at the hospital in Da Nang, a man he called one of his heroes.
Bill was a chapel attendee, a wonderful Christian man, and one of the great supporters of the chapel ministry that I had at the hospital. He was the chief of surgery, and we had gotten word that mass casualties were coming. Mass casualties seem to always come at night. I don't know what the reasoning was, but that's when it seemed to happen. And the hospital that we had patients for, or corpsmen for, was pretty well filled up. And we couldn't handle them anymore. And so Bill said, Gordon, he said, we've got mass casualties coming. And he said, I have to go tonight to determine who lives or dies. He said, we're going to take the most vulnerable and send them to Clark. Because we don't know if we keep them, if they're going to make it. But we're going to send them to Clark. He said, we've got to clean the hospital out for patients. I was honored to be asked to go with that man. And I remember going as he went to each bed and pulled up the record, and he would look it through, and I would stand there and I'd be praying for him and the patient. And he would say, this one goes, this one stays. Because he knew full well, every time he said this one goes, that he was signing that man's death warrant. I don't know how he could do it. But Bill is one of my heroes.
After the Tet Offensive in 1968, when the U.S. downsized its role in the conflict, sailors continued to train their South Vietnamese counterparts and turned over equipment and installations. American firepower, both naval gunfire support and aerial bombing, helped turn back the 1972 Easter Offensive, which in turn helped commit the North Vietnamese to peace talks. Later, the Navy rescued tens of thousands of refugees fleeing the country when North Vietnam took Saigon, just as it did 20 years earlier when communist forces overthrew French rule. In the end, U.S. and Allied operational successes were often plagued by America's inconsistent and continually shifting strategic goals. Further, the unstable South Vietnamese government and the erosion of support in American society led to America's ultimate withdrawal from the region. During more than a decade of conflict, the U.S. Navy suffered the loss of 1,631 men killed and 4,178 wounded. Overall, U.S. Navy sailors demonstrated skill and dedication during the Vietnam War. Most veterans were not welcomed home with pageantry or fanfare. Quite the contrary. Many sailors, soldiers, and Marines returning from Vietnam were advised not to wear their uniforms. Even today, many Americans view involvement in Southeast Asia as a tragedy. But Navy Corpsman Danny Lateris characterized his service in Vietnam differently.
I really believe in the great heart of the American military, and Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, Army, I think we try to do good when we're there. I think we always have. Maybe that's naive, but I prefer to be naive, and we really do. I know that everything I did over there, and the guys that I knew, there were no atrocities that occurred. We tried to do the good things, and we tried to remember that we were fighting for a people as much as fighting against the people, and how that was going to turn out, who was to know at the time.